Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new episode of Professionals Unplugged. I am your host, Utkarsh Shukla, and today we have Achim with us. Achim, thank you so much for joining in.
Thanks for having me, man.
Let's start with a very basic question. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience, like who you are, what work you do, anything you want us to know about you?
I'm a veteran B2B tech marketer. I've been in the tech space, B2B tech space since about the mid 90s. Prior to that, I was in the publishing industry and the pre-press publishing industry when desktop publishing was really starting to kick off back in the early 90s. So I'm kind of showing you my age here. In the last few years, what I've been focusing the most on is go-to-market strategies and helping tech companies, especially B2B tech companies, SaaS companies, understand who they are, what they're in, why they're doing what they're doing, positioning, messaging, all that, and helping them with their brand reputation. One of the things that has happened over the last, say, 15, 20 years is go-to-market has been very focused on performance marketing. A lot of times it's because of VC pressure or board pressure to perform immediately or quickly. So brand has sort of taken a back seat, but it's now kind of in a renaissance. And so what I've been focusing the most on the last, say, 2, 3, or 4 years now with my branding experience is helping these tech companies build up their brand reputation so that future buyers can build up confidence and trust in their brand so that these folks ultimately get on the short list. That's it in a nutshell.
That's really great. I think you have vast experience, say mid 90s to right now in 2025. So it's roughly around 25 years of experience, and you have seen the internet era, then the digital era, and now the AI era, right? So if you can just take us from the early 90s till now. So what are the common things that you think that they come up from the 90s till now, and what is the biggest change?
We're in the fifth industrial revolution, and we're heading into the sixth. But so humanity's already gone through five of these major revolutions. The first one, obviously, back in the 1700s, 1794, I think it was the first one. And every industrial revolution causes all kinds of disruption, all kinds of, discomfort and change and things like that. And technology itself has always been at the forefront of creating more, I would say, quicker time to market, as an example. Uh, the things that I've seen in the last, say, 30, 25, 30 years is, um, you know, technology it doesn't necessarily replace jobs, so to speak. It does replace tasks. And we're seeing some of the fear right now, or the fear, uncertainty, and doubt around AI, where people are, losing their jobs or quote unquote losing their livelihoods through AI. Uh, I would say yes and no. I think folks who, if you look at all previous revolutions, you'll see a trend, and the trend typically is the folks who are subject matter experts who understand their role from a holistic perspective and see how technology can benefit that, have adopted technology to make their lives easier and make their productivity more effective. The other thing too is that we sometimes focus a little too much on say efficiency, cost efficiency, things like that. So there's a trend right now, which has happened before, but there's a trend right now, especially with AI, where corporations are cost cutting for efficiency's sake and using AI to compensate for that. The problem though is that efficiency without effectiveness first always ends badly because or it's just disguised as cost cutting, which is I would say 9 times out of 10 that is the reason. Now, probably the biggest lesson I would say is because I've been through this before is uh, adopt technology, learn the technology and how it would best suit how it can improve your job, as an example, or make you more effective and make you more productive, because then you become more efficient because of that. The thing that I also have seen, because I've seen this before, is if you're a subject matter expert, like I said before, if you're a subject matter expert and you're using your technology to be a better subject matter expert, that's a good thing. If you're not a subject matter expert and you're using technology to pretend that you are a subject matter expert, that's usually where things start to go sideways. And we see that with, ChatGPT. People are just throwing stuff in and just copying and pasting what it spits out. But like any technology, it's only as good as what you put into it. So, the old saying of garbage in, garbage out is very, very evident, and you see that now with all kinds of AI tools. Probably the best example I can give you that's probably most relevant to, say, the marketing space is when Adobe created PostScript back in the late 80s, early 90s, actually late 80s. Uh, PostScript changed a lot of the way that we were creating documents, as an example, right? The printing laser printers were able to then print very, very sharp images and sharp text, things like that. Um, when Adobe launched their products like Illustrator back in 1988, and then I think Photoshop a year later, what Photoshop ended up doing is creating a tool for graphic designers and photographers. Yes, there was a rush and a hype around that. Yes, a lot of people misused that kind of stuff, created all kinds of nonsense. But the subject matter experts, those professional designers and the professional photographers use those tools to be better designers and be better
Mhm.
photographers. And that's where I think the lesson is, even with AI. Absolutely learn it, absolutely adopt it, learn how it can make you a better person, better a better teammate, things like that, a better engineer, a better marketer, a better designer, whatever it is. Absolutely do that. But you gotta have to remember what you put into it is what you get out of it. So
Right. Right. I think that's the main point, how you are using the thing that are available to you, especially this new technology. If you are going to use it with more senses and with more good ethics, I think it is the result will be in your favor only, right?
yeah,
Okay.
agreed.
And not talking about the challenges that you have faced in all this generation that you mentioned, all those revolutions of industry that you have gone through, right? So, what were the biggest challenge that you think you have faced?
Oh, I think with anything, there's always the challenge of change and managing change. If you're familiar with the forming, storming, norming for performing model, and if you're not, just imagine an S curve where your baseline is is your forming stage. Like you're forming this new strategy, you're forming a new approach, things like that. So that you're at a forming stage. Well, what happens is when you make that forming change, and the S curve starts to go down, and then that dip is the storming stage, and storming basically means the storm is going to come. There's usually a lot of discomfort. There's a lot of resistance to that change, a lot of pushback, and but you have to go through that storming phase to get to normal again, which is back on the baseline. But the great thing about that push is the momentum of when you're coming up from that storming phase is it pushes you into performing a much, much higher degree. And like any S curve economics, you just repeat that cycle as you keep moving up and scaling and reforming your strategy, reforming your position, depending on what the market, conditions are, what the headwinds are, the tailwinds are. All that dictates how you keep that S curve growing and growing and growing. But the reality is, and this is where the challenge lies, is um, when you get a lot of resistance to the storming phase, that's usually where the growth or the scale stops because people push back too much. So managing that is really, really key. The other challenge that I see is just the fear that takes over people, and fear is all up here. I always say fear is what's the great analogy of that is false expectations appearing real, right? That's fear. And they are false expectations. And so a lot of times we have to try to sit back and look at what's causing these things rather than correlating what we think is happening, because correlation is not causation. and looking at what's the cause and effect here, right? So if we go back further far enough, we can see that we've already like humanity's gone through this so many times, and we just need to embrace that change, like I said before, and just be willing to be wrong. That's the other thing is be willing to be wrong and be willing to make that change. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck. And fear, uncertainty, and doubt will always keep us in a position of no growth, right? So in order to grow, especially during times of fast change, especially right now with AI, it's a lot faster than it was before. So just the other thing that I think through just experiences that don't get trapped in the overwhelm. The overwhelming nature of and the speed of change can definitely be too much. And we always just say, man, just chill and just do what you can with what you got now, and just keep learning. Just keep learning. But the challenges are real. The challenges are definitely real.
Right. And talking about the journey that you shared with us, is there any story that you like to share with us from your experience? Any incident or stories
Story about,
about any work or any challenge that you have faced, or any particular incident that you think should be heard, or any
oh
place where
gosh,
you feel motivated or
yeah, there's so many. What I would say is that and because my swim lane is so to speak is in B2B tech. Um, I would say if there's any B2B tech founders and leaders out there that are struggling, um, chances are it's because you've been focusing too much on performance and efficiency, and not enough on um, you know investing in your brand reputation, and definitely not focusing enough on effectiveness first. I see that all the time. Any company that I've helped over the years has always struggled with the effectiveness of what they're doing, focusing too much on the efficiency. So that's a that's a very common thread. The Probably the best example I can give you is from a few years ago. I was working with a firm out of Germany, and they were struggling with moving or yeah, capturing market share in North America. They were very well positioned in the German speaking markets. And because I'm from Germany and I'm fluent in German, I was able to help them translate, not just literally translate, but translate the essence and the meaning, the intangible part of their brand into a message that was resonated more into what the U.S. market was actually that would resonate with the U.S. market is what I'm trying to say. As you know, because you speak two different languages, there are certain things in a culture that you just can't translate, right? In a spoken or written way. So to translate the emotion, sometimes you need to change up the language, or you need to change up the message to get to get closer to that emotional connection. So that's a good example of looking at what's causing these things rather than looking at what the effect is. Whereas we tend to look more at the effect rather than the cause, and helping that company then translate that emotional connection that they had in the German-speaking markets into something that resonated in the U.S. market. And That was a great success story because what I learned from that was, and what the company learned from that was, is that unless you're willing to actually change, you can't make that leap, right? So they were willing to let go of certain things that they were doing in the German-speaking market in order to capture the U.S. market. And so being able to have that open-mindedness and then champion that is where the company totally took off. I have to give props to the CEO because he became the champion of that brand, and ultimately that's what swayed a lot of the potential resistance from his own team into making that move to change and go into the U.S. market with a much more what I would call global position, right? So that's a good example of a story that I'm super proud of because that company went from you know I think they were somewhere around the 5 or 6 million euro mark a year to like 52 or 54 million in the next 4 or 5 years, right? So, and super tremendous growth. And I'm not saying that's because of marketing or branding. It's because of a sum. It's because of the collective sum of everything that came out of that.
Correct. And talking about this role that you are playing, helping product grow or helping companies grow in with the help of marketing, right? So whenever a new client comes to you, so what are the steps that you follow, or if you can just take us through like how you evaluate what are the marketing things needed to be done, or anything that you like to share with us.
Well, I have a process that my former agency partner, when I used to run an agency, he and I came up with back in, gosh, it's probably 20 years ago now. Um, and it's a four-pillar process that I've always used ever since because it's solid. Always, always start with insight. You have to start with insight first. And two critical pieces of insight is market insight and customer insight. And I would say too many marketers or too many B2B companies don't invest enough in market research or customer research. Um, if you cannot start there, it's almost impossible to create a strategy that's even remotely going to stick. Yes, we can, to some degree, with our assumptions, make certain guesses and certain bets based on our own experience, but without actually doing the proper homework, which is the insight of what customers are actually, you know, wanting and needing, and what the market is actually fit for, you're really just going blind. So I always look for the willingness from companies to embrace that. If they're looking for tactics, which is typically where a lot of companies just jump to, I always say that's because that's the fun part. Insight first, then strategy, and then tactics, and then metrics after. But everyone jumps to tactics because it's easy, quote unquote easy, right? Pushing pixels or writing. I'd rather do that than do all the hard work first. But you have to do the hard work in order to create positioning and messaging that actually resonates with with the buyers that you're actually after. Um, Not knowing your buyer, not knowing your customer is one of the biggest traps that a lot of these tech companies get into. Because they fall in love with their product so much that they think that, oh, if I like it, someone else will too, right? Now, yes and no. Products, there's so many products on the market too, by the way. Back in say 2010, there was, just in marketing tech alone, and I'm sure we would probably some of the viewers might have already seen this, but the marketing landscape, the market tech landscape, back in 2010, there was maybe 150 logos in market at that time. There's over 15,000 today, right? So the selection that buyers have to go through, the buying selection process is critically important to help them buy. Buying is a lot harder than selling, so having that insight is absolutely critical to be able to tell a story that is targeted and niche to the buyer that the tech companies are after, rather than just trying to be everything to everybody, right? Um, that's probably the biggest lesson that I can tell.
That's really great, and I think it will help a lot of people who are trying to get their product to a certain extent and help them grow, right? So
Absolutely.
thanks so much for sharing it. Is there any advice that you follow in your life, and any advice that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Yeah, if anybody looks at my LinkedIn profile, there's a couple things, and that life has taught me over the last, 4 or 5 decades, and that is, um, sometimes we get too focused on doing it or trying to get likes, trying to boost our rankings, things like that. you know, um, Life is too short, man. Like I would say, focus on making good memories because memories are all we can take and leave behind at the end of the day. None of this material stuff really matters. Um, and I would say making good memories in your work leads to better relationships. That's why brand is so important because your personal brand also accentuates your corporate brand, right? Like I said, the example that I shared with the German company coming over to the United States as an example, the fellow the CEO who ran that company, his personal brand was tied directly to the corporate brand, and those two were balanced very, very well. That's one of the reasons why they succeeded, right? So a good example of what I mean by make good memories. Um, the other thing I would say is, and this is something that's really dear to my heart, and that's something that I've learned from a quote that I heard from the Governor General of Australia, the former Governor General of Australia, David Hurley. He said that and this is brilliant, by the way. I love this. It's the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. So always hold yourself to a high bar. Always hold yourself to a high standard, and never walk below that. Keep it above the line, so to speak, right? And then that also accentuates the whole point about making better memories, making good memories. I'm actually have a side project called Better At, and the whole point of that is based on those two thoughts of making better memories and having a high standard. And Better At this whole idea is all based on, rather than trying to always be better than someone, try to be better at what you're doing, and at the same time help other people be better at that too. So just kind of pay it forward that way rather than try to always one up someone. So that's kind of my life advice.
That's really great, and it's have me in awestruck moment. So it's really great to hear such a great words, and I hope it will help a lot of people who are going to watch this, and they can
Yeah, me
also
too.
right. So at this point of time, what's your dream right now?
What's my dream?
Yeah.
Oh, boy, I mean, there's so many. I'd say that the number one is just having more time with family. I mean, the nice thing about being a consultant now is I have time with my wife and my son, who's now 22. But the I mean, just having the balance and yeah, I would say having the balance is a big one. I love to travel as well because I think travel is one of those things that makes you more empathetic to other cultures. There's a great quote from Mark Twain about travel, and that is, "Travel is the enemy of prejudice." And I totally believe that, right? The more that people get out of their own comfort zone, stretch their comfort zone, go to other countries, experience other cultures, meet different people, we find that at the very, very core of it, if you take away all the political nonsense, at the very core of it, we're all really much the same. We all want the same things. We all have the same hopes and dreams. My dream obviously would be that more people would do that. I think we'd have less of the geopolitical nonsense that's going on right now. And yeah, I guess if I was at a beauty pageant, I'd see world peace.
Correct. I think that's the best part to end this podcast. So thank you so much, Akim, for joining. It was really
Thank you for
an
having me.
experience for me. And keep shining and keep motivating people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.